picked Jan and Stan Berenstain and the Berenstain Bears because they've been around over 50 years and they're still popular with children. I know when I taught, they were popular with my first graders, and my own children, they were popular with them when they were preschool to about kindergarten age. Jan and Stan were the creators of the Berenstain Bears, and they wrote over 200 books. 250 million copies have been sold, many languages, TV series, stage show, theme park characters. I wanted to see where the beginning of the Berenstain Bears were and how they were created. To do that, I went back and looked at the beginning, and you can see the picture Janice Grant and Stanley Berenstain. They were both born in the same year, 1923, and they grew up in Philadelphia. But they never met until their first day of attending the Philadelphia Museum of Industrial Arts. I love this picture because it kind of embodies that sense of humor and just their relationship that they had. After school, they were parted during World War II. Stan was drafted, and he worked as a medical illustrator for a plastic surgeon in the Army. And you can see there's an illustration that he drew. And then Jan worked as a drafter for the Army Corps of Engineers and also riveting Navy seaplanes. After the war, they were married, and they became a team in both marriage and their career. They started out working together at doing cartoons for magazines like McCall's, and then later they put together cartoons that they had done into books. They were humorous books for adults. Then after they had their children, they decided to write a children's book. And you can see here there's a picture of them with their two boys, Mike and Leo, in the middle. And their first draft was called Freddie Bear's Spanking. And they took it to Macmillan. And they were known as cartoonists, so the editor didn't understand how they would be writing a children's book. And they said, children love cartoons, so, putting cartoons in a children's book should be effective. And she responded with, as I'm sure you know, children like many things that aren't good for them. They were discouraged, but they hired an agent who sent them to beginner books at Random House, and that was where Theodore Geisel was the editor-in-chief. He met with them, and he loved their drawings, but he had a lot of questions about the manuscript. All about the bears, what Papa Bear was doing, why Mama Bear was just standing around, and all sorts of questions. They even talked about the type of rhyme that was in the book. He was very specific about having the right type of rhyme. They felt like they kind of had been run through the mill, but at the end he said he was so happy to work with them and knew they'd come out with a good book. Their first book was published in 1962. It was called The Big Honey Hunt. You can see on this first book here, their names are on there by Stanley and Janice Berenstain. And then on the second book, The Bike Lesson, the names are shortened, and then they added another adventure of the Berenstain Bears. Originally, Geisel had asked them to do a book with another animal next, because he felt like there'd been a lot of bear stories. But after the success of the first one, he asked them to do another bear family book. Another interesting thing that when you look at the beginning, they talked about how the bear family was really based on their family, and kind of the personalities of Mama and Papa Bear were based on their own personalities, and it was just a bit exaggerated. The Berenstain Bears have been around a long time, and so to kind of figure out their mass market appeal, I looked at what people were saying about them and how they've had the longevity. And some of the things that stood out were Papa Bear's comic relief. You kind of had the wise Mama Bear who took care of the discipline for the most part, and then you had Papa Bear always kind of being almost as bad as the children, making it a little more humorous. And then you have the brightly colored illustrations, because in 1962 this was not as common. Having colored illustrations was just coming out. And then the Treehouse Escape, just having the bear country, kind of a simpler time, is enticing for children and parents. And then having the simple storylines for young children is just easy to follow, it's very familiar. And then also the common family issues. They had ones for first dentist visit, not getting along with brothers and sisters, messy rooms, bullying, all sorts of issues throughout the years that are common to all families. There are quite a few who don't really care for the Berenstains, so some of the critiques of the books in the series are that they are kind of preachy and patronizing. Their message is very straightforward. It's not something that you have to infer or figure out. And then also that Mama Bear is the stay-at-home mom in charge of the household, and how her role really hadn't changed. Although one of the books she did get a job, but she ended up, that was the only one where she had a job outside the home. So a lot of people feel like she didn't really change with the times and the culture. And another big one is that Papa Bear was such a wimp and a doofus, that he's, not really, he's one always as bad as the children. So that one thing that could be appealing, a lot of people also don't like. In fact, one of the people called him the insufferable bear family. And then one of the biggest things is just that the stories are pretty shallow. They have the same formula. You have the problem, the consequences, and then the resolution. I felt like the quote from Emily Langer when Jan Berenstain passed away in 2012 was really fitting. It kind of embodied both the appeal and the criticisms of the books. Over the years, the Berenstains drew criticism for promoting long outmoded gender roles and overly simple life lessons. But readers who love Bear Country consider it a place not unlike Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, where a fixed storytelling routine and familiar characters bring comfort to children as they seek to navigate a world that becomes ever more complicated as they grow up. Looking at the Berenstain Legacy, I think really it was about their lasting partnership in work and marriage, and then just that they share their life experiences with people through their children's books, and they did it in such a colorful way, and it was simple, and it just felt like they lived life in a positive way and with a humorous outlook, which probably explains kind of the longevity of their working and marriage relationship. Their autobiography, Down a Sunny Dirt Road, really kind of embodied that, even in the title, despite any problems and obstacles, just how they've had that sunny outlook and that they had that shared lifelong passion for their art and for their family.